Forever ended after 3 years, 5 months, and 20 days. That's how long my quiet, predictable life lasted before it all started unraveling, 2 weeks ago. My name's Jason, and I've been married to my wife, Megan, for just over 3.5 years. We met at a career networking event while I was finishing my master's. She was there talking up the company she worked for, and even though her field had nothing to do with mine, we hit it off. A few ordinary dates turned into something more. She was 6 months out of a broken engagement, and I'd been casually dating here and there for a couple of years. Before long, we were spending almost all our free time together. Megan had a salaried job, while I was buried in thesis work. We were both hesitant about jumping into something serious, but once things clicked, they really clicked. We knew we were meant for each other. We got married not long after I graduated, promising each other that our love would last forever. I landed a job nearby, which allowed Megan to stay with her company. I worked as a project manager for a network solutions firm in northern Indiana. I oversaw a team of 12 and sometimes had to travel with a group to set up systems for clients. I didn't pick who went on these trips. Those decisions were made by a team of project managers and my boss, Dennis. We tried to make sure everyone got on-site experience. This particular trip, my team included 2 guys and 3 women, all older than me. We were dealing with a tricky client, so their experience was definitely valuable. The first signs of trouble showed up right away. We arrived at 8 a.m., had our kickoff meeting, and started rolling out our setup. By mid-morning, their so-called expert exploded at Leanne, one of my best team members. I stepped in and smoothed things over with their site manager, but Leanne was rattled. I told her to take a breather in the break room. Unfortunately, things flared up again after lunch. Their guy lost it once more, and eventually he was told to leave for the day. I did my best to calm Leanne down, but in the end, I sent her back to the hotel. She did show up for dinner with the team, and afterward, I invited everyone to join me for a jog around the nearby park. Leanne was the only one who came. While we jogged, she made a strange comment, suggesting we run away together. I quickly reminded her of our company's strict rules about relationships between supervisors and their direct reports. Back in my room that night, I couldn't stop thinking about what she said. I called Megan, but I didn't mention anything about Leanne. Leanne had always seemed a bit resentful about me being her superior, often towing the line of disrespect. The next morning, I checked in with her. "You okay today?" I asked. "I'm fine for now, Jason," she said flatly. Thankfully, that day went smoother. Their experts still doubted our work but at least didn't blow up again. After another group dinner, a guest caused some chaos in the restaurant, but nothing that involved us directly. I went for a solo jog, had a quick chat with Megan, and caught the late news. Then, around 10:30, someone knocked on my door. It was Leanne, wearing her coat. I opened the door and asked if she was all right. Her voice was calmer than usual. She said she had something to show me, then opened her coat, revealing her bare body underneath. I immediately told her to cover up and go back to her room. I turned her down flat, told her we'd talk in the morning. She gave me this fake sad smile before walking away. I knew then that I had to inform Dennis. I fired off an email asking for a private conversation once I got back. The next morning, I asked her again if everything was okay. She gave the same vague, "I'm fine for now," response. She was still competent at her job, but something about her demeanor seemed off. Dennis got back to me, confirming we'd meet when I returned. The rest of the trip was uneventful. Leanne kept her usual distance, and I was just relieved the weirdness seemed to be behind us. That was until Sunday night. Out of nowhere, I got a text from Leanne. It was full of explicit language and emojis I'd never seen from her before, definitely meant for someone else. We hadn't seen each other since the flight landed Friday, so I figured she just sent it to me by mistake. I didn't reply, but I made a mental note to mention it on Monday. When I brought it up, she looked at me with a straight face and said, "Jason, I didn't send anyone a text last night." I let it go. She was knee-deep in debugging an issue, and I had plenty on my plate too. But then, Tuesday night, another message from her popped up. This one said, "Could the closeness with you get any better? I don't think so." Followed by a trail of heart and bird emojis. I followed up with Dennis, shooting him another email to remind him about my request for a private talk. He apologized for the delay but pushed the meeting to next Monday. Then on Wednesday, Leanne called in sick. Since Dennis was out of town, I had to wait another day before I could confront her. My day was pretty routine, until I got blindsided in the parking lot. I was heading to my car when someone called out my name. That's the last thing I remember before everything went black. I came to in a hospital bed, confused and in pain. The police filled me in. Leanne's husband, Terry, had attacked me. He thought I was sleeping with her, and lost it. The guy didn't just throw a punch, he broke 2 of my ribs, gave me a concussion, ruptured something in my gut, and smashed my right hand. As if that wasn't enough, he left printed screenshots of Leanne's texts, photos included, next to my unconscious body. He'd blacked out the most graphic parts with a marker. But he didn't stop there. He mailed the same set to Megan. She answered the first call from the hospital, wishing out loud that I wouldn't survive. I stayed overnight under observation. Megan refused to take any more of my calls. By Thursday, I was discharged and took a cab home. Megan wouldn't speak to me. I was in too much pain to argue, so I ordered pizza and ate in silence. Friday afternoon, still hurting, I forced myself to go into the office. That's when I found out I'd been placed on paid leave, pending a hearing scheduled for Monday when Dennis got back. Apparently, Terry had filed a complaint. When I got home, Megan was there, dressed to kill. It caught me completely off guard. I asked her why she was home so early, pointing out the note she'd left me that morning. "I've got a date," she said flatly. I warned her not to do this, that there was no coming back from it. She shot back that I had no right to talk, calling me a hypocrite. She claimed Terry had the wrong guy and that she hadn't done anything to damage our marriage. She demanded proof, denied ever replying to any explicit texts or photos, and insisted she was innocent. Then she said something that hit like a brick. "I might be back tonight, or I might not. Don't wait up." She brushed off my warning like it was nothing. Said she was going out with a coworker, to get revenge for what she believed I'd done. Her note was basically a hit piece, calling me worthless and saying she was going to have some fun. After she left, I tried to settle in, but the pain was unbearable. I scribbled a quick note for Megan, something about how I wasn't feeling right, and headed to the ER. It was 6 p.m. Friday. Turns out, the hit I took had ruptured my spleen. My brother, listed as my emergency contact, was notified while I was in surgery. They patched me up and stitched me back together. I woke up to beeping machines and sunlight pouring into the room. I sat there, trying to follow the hospital's dietary instructions while running everything over in my head. That's when my phone buzzed. It was an unfamiliar number. I picked up. The voice on the other end accused me of being an idiot, said I'd been with her again last night. I told him he had the wrong guy. I'd been in the hospital since 6 the night before. Total silence followed. I repeated myself. Told him I'd gone to the gym around 8 p.m., only for an hour. Then I added, "I was literally on the operating table while you think I was out screwing your wife. I'm in room 612 at University Hospital. I'm not going anywhere today." He didn't argue. After hanging up, I checked my messages. Sure enough, there was a fresh text from Leanne. "Last night was incredible. The closeness was everything. The floor nurse came in to change my drip. I almost asked her to give me something to make this all go away. She said she'd be back in a few minutes to change my dressings. And then Megan showed up. Still dressed to impress. Still looking like she hadn't changed clothes from her supposed date. She asked if I was okay. I said I was, and then I told her to leave. She said she'd come right over after reading my note, said she was worried. But I wasn't buying it. "You stayed out all night," I said. "That was the end of our marriage." My voice got loud enough that the nurse popped her head in to check. I asked her to help escort Megan out. Security ended up stepping in. Alone again, I tried to piece together Leanne's behavior. Was this all revenge? Was she lashing out because I turned her down? Or was it about me being her boss? None of it made sense. Maybe she meant to send those messages to someone else, and just used my number by mistake? That was the only explanation that didn't make my head explode. Then Megan called my cell. Her voice was cold. "This marriage is over. Don't contact me again." I texted Megan back, calling her out for pretending to be righteous now after what she'd done. She shot back that I had it all wrong, claimed she was innocent, and said we were finished. I hung up on her. A few minutes later, she sent a message. "We need to talk." I replied. "No, we don't. Move your stuff out, or leave mine by the door." She wrote back. "I thought we were soulmates." I snapped. "Is that what you thought while you were getting your revenge? While you were out with your new boyfriend?" I couldn't take it anymore. I shut off my phone, buzzed the nurse, and asked for morphine, just in time for lunch. A little later, the nurse came back to change my dressings, starting with my face. That's when I heard a knock at the door. It was Leanne and Terry. Leanne gasped the moment she saw me. "Oh my God, Jason, what happened to you?" "Hi, Leanne. You must be Terry," I said, glancing at him. "What happened to your lip?" She looked away. "I ran into a door," I added. "Happened in the employee parking lot. The investigation's still ongoing. Last night they found out I had a ruptured spleen, but nothing too serious. A few stitches and I'm good as new." We all knew Terry had been the one who jumped me. The cops definitely knew. But apparently, he hadn't told Leanne a thing. The nurse finished up with my face and asked if I wanted them to leave while she handled the dressings from the spleen surgery. I said no. Let them stay. She left the room to grab supplies, promising to be quick. Leanne sat down in the chair beside the bed, and Terry stepped closer like he wanted to talk. I motioned him in and quietly asked if Leanne had been under any extra stress lately. Her behavior on our last trip had been off. He lowered his voice and told me her mom died in a car accident last Christmas, and her sister had just started chemo for breast cancer. He said Leanne seemed to be coping okay, but the weight of everything was still there. The nurse came back, and Terry stepped back toward the wall. The room went quiet. Then, just like a hurricane, Megan burst through the door, screaming at me and at Leanne. The nurse immediately called security. Terry had to restrain Megan until they arrived. Once things calmed down, the nurse got back to work. Leanne stood up and moved close, too close, and reached for my hand. "Last night was amazing," she said dreamily. "We have to go back to that beach. The closeness with you, it's just perfect." The nurse, Terry, and I just stared at her. Shocked. Speechless. The nurse turned to Terry and said, "Don't let her leave. I'll be right back." Terry wrapped his arms around Leanne in a kind of desperate, protective hug, his face full of sadness and guilt. 5 minutes later, the nurse returned with 2 doctors, and together, they escorted Terry and Leanne out of the room. I spent the entire afternoon replaying everything from the last 2 weeks in my head. The pieces started clicking together. There were 2 sides to Leanne, 2 completely different people inside her. A few hours later, Terry came back, clearly torn up, and apologized. He wanted to understand what had triggered Leanne's bizarre behavior. I told him about the angry outburst at work, and he suddenly lit up. "Hang on," he said. "I'll be right back." When he came back, he had a doctor with him. I repeated the whole story, from the business trip to her random appearances and texts. The doctor explained. "Leanne's trauma runs deep. Her father was verbally abusive for years. What you're seeing is the result of a dissociative identity disorder. It's a defense mechanism. Her mind created a separate personality to deal with the pain." He added, "You must have stepped in during a key moment, and that made a lasting impression on her alternate persona." Terry asked about specific incidents, Sunday and Tuesday, for example. I filled him in on the lawnmower situation and the blow-up over the complaint I filed. Everything started to make a little more sense. The doctor said there's no quick fix. Leanne would need serious therapy and a lot of time to heal. Terry apologized again and left me alone with my thoughts. Even after all she'd done to disrupt my life, I couldn't help but feel a bit sorry for her. They told me if everything stayed quiet that night, I could go home by noon Sunday. I emailed Dennis and asked him to reach out to Terry. There were things he needed to know. Then I scrolled through the messages Megan had left me. Nothing but rage. Just message after message, blaming me, accusing me, twisting everything. It hurt, more than I expected. I played a few of her voicemails, but every time she tried to justify herself, I got angrier. I deleted them all. Sunday, I drove home. The house looked exactly like I'd left it. Megan hadn't moved out. My stuff was still there. I started packing. I packed what I thought I'd need for the week, and had just dropped the last bag into my trunk when Dennis called around 3 p.m. He asked if he could swing by to talk. He told me that upper management was fully convinced I hadn't done anything wrong. My attempt to report Leanne's behavior, plus Terry explaining her medical diagnosis, had cleared up any concerns they had. I was reinstated. Everything would be wiped clean from my employment record. As for Leanne, she was placed on unpaid leave. Just as I hung up the call, Megan pulled into the driveway. She jumped out of her car, accusing me of trying to run away and calling me a coward. I told her straight. Leanne had a breakdown. The things she said weren't true. She's under psychiatric observation at University Hospital. If you don't believe me, ask her husband, Terry. But Megan wouldn't drop it. She begged me to stay, said it was all just a huge misunderstanding. She insisted Leanne had lied and apologized for everything, pleading with me not to leave. I told her I couldn't live the next 40 years looking over my shoulder. I couldn't be married to someone who'd weaponize our relationship for revenge. Her actions had crossed the line. I shook my head, closed my car door, and told her I didn't want to see or hear from her again. Still, she stood there, begging. Saying we could get through this, that it was all just a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? I repeated. After everything you texted me? After the voicemails? That wasn't confusion, that was character. Despite my hope for a clean split, the court ordered mandatory counseling sessions after Megan claimed she didn't want a divorce. I didn't want to damage my reputation, so I went. From the very first session, it was a disaster. The counselor tried a divide-and-conquer tactic. Megan gave her version of events first, then we switched seats. When it was my turn, I told the counselor exactly what I'd been saying since day one. I'm not staying married to someone who uses their personal life to get revenge. Megan tried to talk things out, tried to make sense of my feelings. She said we needed to communicate better, to cooperate. I wasn't having it. I repeated the same line again. I won't stay with someone who uses intimacy as a weapon. After that, whenever she tried to talk, I just hummed a tune to drown her out. The counselor tried to mediate, but honestly, the sessions only made things worse. After fulfilling the court-ordered counseling, my attorney told me we need to go before the judge. The judge granted the divorce, stating the relationship was beyond repair. But that wasn't the end of Megan's pursuit. She started showing up outside my office after work. I'd run into her at the grocery store. Her texts kept coming, asking me out, trying to talk. I ignored them at first. Then, to slow her down, I texted back. My new wife prefers that you not contact me anymore. I wish you the best. That stopped her, for about a week. She replied, You're not married. I answered, I didn't say I was. But when I am, that's what she'll say. I've moved on. You should too. It seemed to help, a little. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that she'd be a problem if I ever did find someone new. Her obsession was just under the surface. And now, as I step back into the dating world, I'm realizing something hard. I'm not good at it. No one I've met lives up to the image I used to have of Megan. But I'm not rushing anything. There's a woman from accounting, also divorced, who showed some interest. Before asking her out, I ran it by Dennis to make sure it wouldn't cause problems at work. We went out a few times. Eventually, she told me she wanted a friends with benefits arrangement. The morning after we first slept together, Megan sent me a text. She wanted to know if I was in love with the new woman. I told her it was none of her business. But then I added one last message. I still love you, Megan. I'm sorry. Too little. Way too late. In the back of my mind, I sometimes imagine all of you watching this whole disaster unfold like some Dateline special. Leanne eventually returned to work, but under a different manager. I do my best to steer clear. She hasn't said or done anything strange since. As for the police, Terry's assault didn't require my cooperation. The security footage gave them everything they needed. I did end up going to Terry's sentencing and asked the court to show him some leniency. He ended up getting a suspended sentence, but he still walked away with a felony on his record. That chapter of my life closed, and now, years later, I've been married to my second wife, Kathy, for over 30 years. I'm 59 now, she's 55. We've got 3 grown kids and, like any long marriage, it's been a mix of highs and lows. But we've always managed to pull through for each other. Kathy's always been everything to me. Over the last few years, she started spending more time with a group of friends who were really into feminism, identity politics, and social justice. Not really my thing, but I respected that people have their own views. Kathy and I would sometimes talk about these topics, trying to understand each other's perspective. To be honest, I didn't take her ideas seriously at first. They sounded like stuff you hear from loud folks on TV, ranting without making much sense. Kathy had strong opinions, especially about how women have been oppressed for centuries. It shook me a little, especially because she personally hadn't experienced discrimination like that. I often tried to change the subject whenever these conversations got too intense. Still, I worried. I'd seen enough of those woke clips, people screaming, losing their cool, and I couldn't shake the feeling that Kathy was starting to sound like them. Then one day, she blindsided me. She said our marriage had grown dull. I suggested counseling, something we could work on together. But instead, she said she needed a solo vacation. I didn't love the idea, but I agreed, thinking maybe time apart would help. That's when everything changed. She came back a week later looking like a completely different person. Hair chopped short, a new attitude. She didn't hug me. Didn't say she missed me. She acted like I was a stranger. After that, she kept hanging out with her friends more and joining in protests, some of which I didn't support at all. I sat her down and tried to express my concerns. Told her I thought she was heading down a dangerous road. She didn't listen. Then things escalated. She got detained at a protest that blocked a major road. I had to pick her up from the police station. On the drive home, I tried to talk. She didn't say a word. Soon after, Kathy threw herself into TikTok, of all things. She started posting videos about feminism and her beliefs. To my surprise, she actually gained a decent following. She was spending hours recording, dressing up, editing. Then one day, I saw one of her videos that left me completely stunned. In it, she talked about not wanting to end up a miserable old woman. She said many women who had raised families and worked hard for decades reached their 50s or 60s and realized they had nothing for themselves, that they'd lost their identity. She urged women to build lives of their own. That even in good marriages, people can feel unfulfilled. That happiness didn't require divorce, but it did require independence. She told women to travel, to explore, to find joy beyond their roles as wives and mothers. It felt like she was encouraging women to leave their husbands. That night, I confronted her. Her response? She was leaving. She'd already packed her bags. I was floored. She told me she was tired of being trapped. Tired of being a wife, tired of feeling like she had to play the role of grandma. She said she wanted freedom, happiness, something more than the life she felt stuck in. I was speechless. I honestly felt like I'd lost my wife to a toxic group of people who'd filled her head with poison. I didn't try to stop her. I just said I'd miss her, and that if she ever wanted to come home, I'd be here. She moved into a small apartment downtown. I told our kids what had happened. All three said the same thing. She's just going through a phase. She'll be back. I wanted to believe them. But then, out of nowhere, I got served with divorce papers. It wasn't a phase. It was a plan. I tried calling Kathy. She wouldn't answer. Our kids tried too. She shut them out just like she shut me out. A few weeks later, the divorce was final. Just like that, 30 years of marriage gone. The day after our divorce was finalized, Kathy posted a new video. She looked bright, cheerful, giddy even, as she talked about settling into her new apartment. She described her bed as a princess bed, said the rain during the move had made it feel almost cinematic, and claimed she woke up that morning feeling free. Like a weight had finally lifted. For the first time in years, she said, she felt genuinely excited about life. Even though her place was still a mess from unpacking and the apartment was small, requiring what she called creative organizing, she was full of gratitude. She said it felt good to be starting fresh. She even teased that she'd post a full apartment tour the next day. And then, just casually, she mentioned that her very handsome boyfriend was making dinner for her that night. She signed off with a smile and a cheerful, "Life is good." Meanwhile, I was watching all this from the other side of a shattered marriage, angry and heartbroken. She'd already broken our home. Now she was breaking my heart too. My kids saw the video, called me right away to check in, and tried to comfort me. They encouraged me to move on. And eventually, I did. I met someone amazing. Her name's Maya. She's in her early 40s, single, a high school teacher with this calm energy that just puts you at ease. We hit it off instantly. We've been seeing each other steadily for a while now. I never told Kathy about Maya. Honestly, I didn't think it was any of her business. Eventually, I planned a little getaway, just me, my kids, and Maya. I thought it'd be a good way for everyone to get to know each other, and hopefully build something new together. Maya, ever thoughtful, suggested I invite Kathy too. She felt it was only right for Kathy to know that someone else was now part of my life. So I gave Kathy a call and extended the invitation. At first, she declined. I didn't tell her about Maya, just said it'd be nice if she came. Later, our daughter called her and told her straight up, "This is a one-time invite. There won't be another." I'd booked a private boat ride for all of us. Kathy was the last to show up. She came alone. I introduced her to Maya and let her know how happy I was. I wish I'd taken a photo of her face in that exact moment. Her cheeks flushed red. Her expression said it all. She hadn't expected me to move on. Not like this. That entire trip, I couldn't help but notice how much it bothered her. Maya, bless her, tried to keep things peaceful and respectful. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't enjoy seeing Kathy stew in her own discomfort. A few days later, another one of Kathy's videos popped up. This one was different. Her tone was softer. Heavier. She said the last few days had been emotionally traumatic. She admitted that while she didn't think everything was her fault, she took some of the blame for the pain she was going through. She talked about how she'd expected to feel something when she saw me with someone new, but not that. Not the overwhelming heartbreak. She said we were still spending time together occasionally as a family, and that I'd told her more than once I wasn't seeing anyone. Finding out otherwise, in such a public and undeniable way, hit her hard. She explained that she hadn't wanted to come on the trip. That she worried I'd misunderstand her intentions. But our daughter convinced her, told her I might not ask again. Now she understood why. She said the worst part wasn't that I had someone new. She had a boyfriend too, after all. But the real pain came from realizing that I hadn't told her, that I had moved on emotionally. That I had found someone I loved. And that I'd said those words, "I love you," to someone else. That was the dagger. Unlike her boyfriend, who didn't offer stability, didn't talk about a future, didn't invest emotionally, she knew me. When I loved someone, I loved fully. I built a life with them. I gave everything. And now I was giving that to someone else. For Kathy, that was the real loss. That's what broke her. Soon after that video went up, I started getting calls from her. Lots of them. Tearful, remorseful, desperate. She reminded me that I'd once told her to come back when she was done exploring. Now she wanted to know if that door was still open. I told Kathy it was too late. That boat had already sailed. She made her decision. She created this life for herself, and now she had to live with the consequences. I wasn't part of that story anymore. A few days later, another video of hers popped up. In it, she admitted that things weren't going well. She reflected on how good life used to be, and wondered aloud if the mess she was in now was her own doing, if maybe she had been selfish, too focused on herself. She said that in the beginning, everything felt fine. But now the reality of being separated was starting to sink in. She acknowledged it wasn't a divorce, at least not at first, but even just the separation had taken its toll. Kathy said she kept remembering all the good times, the happy memories. And now, she found it hard to even recall the bad ones. She talked about a friend, a woman she used to be close with, who had invited her over for dinner. Kathy had even bought gifts for the kids. Instead of staying home with her own family, she went and sat at another family's table. And she said, for the first time, it really hit her, what she'd lost. Being part of a family meant something to her, and now she didn't know who she was without it. She even wondered if it might have been better to live with the misery she once felt if it meant still having us. Tearing up, Kathy clarified that she wasn't drunk or anything, it was just hard. She wished everyone a happy Saturday and signed off, saying she hoped she'd be okay someday. That video got passed around. My daughter called me after watching it. She asked me if we could do something to help. I told her the truth. Your mom chose this life. I didn't push her out the door, she walked through it. She wanted freedom. Now she has it. She has a boyfriend. She wanted to explore the world, and she can. But she doesn't get to regret it just because things didn't go the way she imagined. My daughter agreed. Said she felt the same way, even if it still hurt to see her mom like that. Then, a few days later, another video. Good morning, Kathy began. Sometimes I wonder what I'm doing, why I made the choices I did. She talked about a dream she'd had. In it, I was there, crying, saying I'd hurt my hand. And she came to help me, even offered to move back and to take care of me. In the dream, she said, it felt like we were starting over, like things used to be. She said she woke up shaken. That it was just a dream, but maybe it meant something. That maybe deep down, she still loved me. Then her tone changed. She got angry. Started talking about how I didn't think she deserved a fair share. That she had supported me, helped build our life, even leaned on her parents for financial help during tough times. She said she was being punished for leaving, that I got to move on while she was struggling. She claimed I was being stingy, that men like me see women as freeloaders. She said she felt like she had no value after 30 years of being there for someone. And I just stared at the screen. She had lost the plot. She did get a fair settlement. Everything was handled legally and by the book. I never tried to cheat her. I wasn't the villain here, no matter how she tried to spin it. I wanted to hit back. I considered suing her for defamation over that video. But Maya, always the steady one, talked me down. Let it go, she said. She's just trying to drag you back into her chaos. Meanwhile, our kids weren't having it either. They called Kathy and told her straight, take the video down and apologize, or be cut out of their lives. She caved. Posted a half-hearted apology, blaming her mental health for her behavior. It was weak, but I didn't care anymore. A few days later, I married Maya. I unfollowed Kathy on every platform. That chapter is closed.